The first season of Survivor was a massive success for CBS, to the point that the finale alone brought in 51 million viewers. Needless to say, they were plans for a sequel season, and they had to go big or go home. And thus, Survivor of the Australian Outback was born. Growing up, I saw the season a couple times via syndication, and it was alright, but not anything memorable to me. But now that I'm in my 40s, at least in my reality, I think it's time I give the second season another watch, and see if this was yet another thing past me was wrong about. So the premise of this season is similar to the first, and it will continue down this path for the rest of the series. A group of people from different walks of life are marooned and have to survive the harshness of Australia, the animals, and each other for 42 days this time, while also competing in challenges and voting each other out every 3 days until there's only one left to claim the $1 million prize. A simple, but effective premise that still works after all this time. Like before, it's interesting to see how these 16 contestants interact with the new environment, but also each other, and also see the various ways they try to outwit, outplay, and outlast one another. Also, like before, some lays around, but there's a lot more strategy talk this time around, and people are more willing to form alliances, which is great to see, since during last season, only Richard Hatch was the only one to properly capitalize on that opportunity, outside of the barbecue alliance that lasted for 5 minutes. To see 2 alliances prominently doing stuff throughout the season, and strategizing eliminations and plans for the endgame, that was refreshing to see compared to Borneo. It's just unfortunate that once we hit the merge, it effectively becomes another pagonging, but for Kucha this time, as their members are wiped out one by one, save for the rare time where Ogakor cuts one of their own loose, like with Jerry and Amber. Still though, it is a step in the right direction, and later seasons, for the most part, do improve this pagonging issue, so that is a relief. However, there is another issue I have with this season. The 42 days. I'm sorry, but this drags out the pacing when there's only 16 contestants, and frankly, I'm glad later seasons abandon this. Speaking of abandoning in later seasons, the deadlock being settled by past votes was fucking stupid. I'm sorry. But at least with fire making or a challenge between the tied contestants, they'd at least have more of a fair shot in staying than their fate being decided by past votes cast days or even weeks before. Needless to say, I wasn't a fan of Mitchell and Varner's eliminations because of this. But yeah, that's all I got for negatives on this season. Everything else for the most part is a big improvement over the original season. The challenges are a lot better structured and less luck-based for the most part, though End of the Line is back again and the winner cheats in that.
Caught you in 20K HDR 1200 FPS!
But at the very least, this is the last season to have this stupid fucking challenge, so that's a relief. Even Rescue Mission was modified to be much less luck-based since the distance and obstacles are the same for both tribes, so there's no advantage one team has over the other outside of one tribe just being better at it. And the music is once again fantastic. Even the eliminations weren't as head-scratching as last time for the most part, since most of them made sense. So that's another plus in this season's direction. But with Mitchell's, there's a bit of a whole controversy because Tina talked with some of the members off screen in voting out Mitchell. Would have been nice to fucking see that, but okay. This season also had a couple big moments that made me prefer this season over Borneo. 3 moments where the contestants realized the dangers of nature. The forest fire incident that lasted for several episodes on Ogakor's tribe, where the contestants were worried about it hitting them. Thankfully it didn't, but that shit was legitimately serious, and it showed the viewers that this reality show was not completely fake. Stuff like this can happen while you're living out in the wilderness trying to survive. And it's scary as fuck. And speaking of survival, the flooding incident. Around the final 7/6, the water was rising, and as we the viewers found out later, the merged tribe's camp was situated at a dry riverbed, and as a result, some of their stuff was washed away. Now, thankfully, they were able to get stuff like their rice back, but the devastation that flood left could be seen from the contestants' expression and body language. That was their home, and it effectively got destroyed just at the snap of a finger. That shit was chilling. And it's also a thing that happens a lot in the wilderness. Sometimes Mother Nature will want you to suffer, and will smite you through random events like flash flooding, a tree collapsing on your home, etc. But speaking of smiting... On day 17, contestant Michael Scoopin inhaled some of the smoke from the fire and collapsed into it, severely burning his hand and shoulder, and resulting in him being medically evacuated from the game. This was the very first time in American Survivor that a contestant was close to death. The scarring, the screams of agony that hurt to fucking see on television. For many viewers, they thought they were watching a scripted show about people on an island competing in silly challenges for a bunch of money. So to see something this real, this harmful, this serious happen, and to millions of viewers, this was a major moment for the series at the time, and showcased that no, Survivor is not fake. This was very much a real moment that happened, and had real-life consequences for Scoopin, as it took him a year to recover from that serious injury. Now, looking back on this, with the knowledge of him being a convicted offender towards a minor, I view this as more so a foreshadowing of his future punishments in hell, but at the time, this was a shocking moment, and also a very important one for the show going forward. But yeah, I think that's about everything outside of my thoughts on the contestants, so let's talk about them. Deb, really hard worker, and I liked her personality. But she forgot that Survivor is also a team game, and she sucked in that aspect. Still though, outside of that, I liked her. Kel. This guy is notorious for the beef jerky incident in which he allegedly smuggled it in without telling anyone and eating it while his tribe was fucking starving. Now, do I believe that he did smuggle in the beef jerky? Yes. Given his background of being in the army and also having camping experience, I think it's very much possible he managed to smuggle in beef jerky. Do I believe it was the main reason he got the boot, though? No. Looking over the footage again, Kel sucked at everything he did. From fishing, to challenges, to even the social aspect of the game, he screamed first boot material. So the beef jerky shit show was just the icing on the cake of failure that was Kel in this season. Marilyn. Really nice person who had good chemistry with the likes of Tina and was pretty solid as a competitor. It's just a shame that she got the boot early, but yeah, she was good. Mitchell. Honestly should have went over Maryland, because he was annoying, sucked in most of the challenges, his chemistry was weak as fuck, and he basically gave up near the end. What a fucking shame. Kimmy was also very annoying, and was not a great player. She constantly got on the other players' nerves, her social game fucking sucked. She was a liability in a lot of the challenges, and frankly, that makes me wonder, how the fuck did she get picked for Cambodia, especially over Shane and Carolyn? What the fuck happened? Oh, and speaking of fuck. Fuck Scoopin! Even ignoring his later actions off the show, I didn't like this guy one fucking bit. His social game sucked. His cockiness was more annoying than charming. The dude was hella ageist against people like Roger.
And especially swimming challenges and climbing challenges, and it's not just Roger, it would be anybody over 50 years old.
Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! Shut up! Shut up!
The only thing he brought to the team was providing them food, and even that was a fucking stretch once Kucha got the chickens. Hell, part of the reason the chickens were even killed was because Scoopin was upset that his role as the provider would be gone thanks to the fowl, which is fucking stupid and petty. Actually, I think that's the best way I can describe Scoopin. Stupid and petty as fuck. Varner's up next. Honestly, I like the guy. He started off weak, but he did grow over time. His social game and chemistry were solid, his performance in the challenges were solid. Overall, a pretty good player. Alicia's another contestant I liked. She wasn't taking anyone's shit, she was a damn strong player in the physical challenges, and she had a good social game with most of the contestants. Good stuff. Jerry was another contestant I liked. Similar to Alicia, she didn't take anyone's bullshit, she was a smart player, had good chemistry with her tribe, and was enough of a menace to split up the Pagonging in the merge for a tiny bit in order to get rid of her. Honestly, Jerry was the biggest surprise on my rewatch, since I thought she'd be a bad player and her reputation was undeserved, but no. She deserved the reputation and respect people have given her over the years. She's really fucking good. Nick, on the other hand, sucked. His social game was weak, his chemistry with the other members of his tribe and the merge tribe was shit. His challenge performance was shit, and he also gave up near the end. The fact he stayed on as long as he did is kind of insulting to me. This guy lasted longer than Jerry, Varner, and Alicia. What the absolute fuck? Amber is another contestant I grew to like over the course of this rewatch. She had good chemistry / personality, she grew over the course of the season. Her social game was pretty good. She would have been a decent endgame threat if Tina didn't notice her flying under the radar at Final 6. But yeah, she's a pretty good player, and I'm interested to see how she plays in All-Stars when I eventually get to that season. Roger was also a great contestant. His personality and social game was great, he had a lovable aura to him, even laying down on the sword figuratively to keep Elizabeth in the game, someone she viewed as like a father. He was an overall lovable guy. Elizabeth was also one I grew to appreciate over time. She had a likable personality, she grew over the course of the season as well, which is a plus. Her social game was good, as was her chemistry with the other members of the game, especially Roger. It sucked to see her go, but the fact she was able to make it to the final 4 and be the last person on Kucha standing, I can respect that 100%. Keith was alright. He was pretty good in the challenges, his chemistry with Tina and Colby was fine, but his attitude did get unbearable at points, and his strategic game was pretty weak. However, if Colby did take him to the end, I do think he'd beat Colby more than likely, because while he was a dick at points, he was still very empathetic for his fellow trimates, especially during the flooding incident, and also in risking his life to get the rice back while the river was raging. Besides, as shown with Richard Hatch in the previous season, you can be a bit of a dick and still win people over in the final tribal, so yeah. And now that leaves the final 2, Colby and Tina. Colby was fine. He was a damn strong competitor in terms of the challenges and had great chemistry with Tina and Keith, as well as a passable social game, but his final tribal performance sucked ass. And honestly, Looking back on this season, I think he had a better chance at winning if he kept Amber or Jerry around. As I said before, I think Keith had a better shot at winning over the jury in comparison to Colby, especially since Jerry was still spiteful to Colby at that time. And while she didn't like Keith either, I think it's very much possible that she was less spiteful of him, in contrast to the other option, which would be Colby. If Colby was up against the sole member of Kucha, the remaining members that were on the jury would vote for them, and Jerry would also likely vote against Colby, so that's out. And we already know what happened with Dina, so that just leaves Amber and Jerry. Against Jerry, he'd probably win since a lot of people didn't like Jerry, and Amber's a bit of a tricky one since she was considered a threat by being under the radar and all that, so that might get some people to vote for her. But on the other hand, people did like Colby, so they might just vote for him to win. But putting all that aside, there's nothing really memorable about Colby to me, outside of his infamous decision to keep Tina over Keith, or don't think he would have won regardless of if he took Keith or not, but semantics, and his impressive run of immunity wins. In a sense, he's kind of the Kelly Wigglesworth of the season. A strong physical game, but man, every other department outside of chemistry. Well, I guess that's not fair to Kelly. At least Kelly didn't take stuff from an important natural wonder of the world. But speaking of nature, let's talk about the one who felled the strong, mighty beast. Yeah, I'm talking about Tina. Tina was a major surprise on my rewatch. I thought she was a weak winner and only made it because she was nice back then. But, oh no! God no! She also deserves her spot in Survivor history. Yes, she's kind, but she also had an amazing social game and was also effectively pulling the strings the entire merge while still maintaining her kind, innocent self to the other contestants. Her chemistry with the other contestants was fantastic, her challenge performance was pretty good. She deserves her spot as one of the best winners out there. A damn good strategist, a great social player, a kind soul that also has no issue cutting you loose in this game, but at the very least, she'll do it gently. One of the best players in the original era of Survivor. So yeah, an overall great cast for the most part, and that's honestly the best way I can describe this season. It's a big step up for the most part from Borneo, and even a lot of the issues I had with it were minor at best. So yeah, I highly recommend this season. Even if you have seen it before when you were younger, I'd say maybe give it another look. It might surprise you like it did me. So that concludes this review. Thank you all for watching, and take care.